Hey everyone, it's Naomi Wolf of Daily Clout and Outspoken, and Lulu Friesdat, the co-founder of smartelections.us, is back, and we're coming to you on a Sunday afternoon in the summertime, interrupting our no doubt preference to be lounging beside a pool because something very newsworthy happened to Ms. Friesdat. So I want to welcome Ms. Friesdat back, and then we'll get into it.
Thanks so much for having me, Naomi. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
It's a pleasure to have you, and I'm just going to remind everyone of Ms. Friesdat's remarkable bio. Lulu Friesdat is an Emmy Award-winning journalist and filmmaker whose election security investigations have received millions of views on Now This and been featured on Politico, MSN.com, The Young Turks, The Hollywood Reporter, The Christian Science Monitor, Salon, Truthout, and Alternet. They've also resulted in a top Florida election official's conduct being declared illegal and voting machines in Wisconsin being decertified. She has worked in broadcast television for over 10 years, including in assignments with NBC, CBS, and ABC News/Nightline. Her first documentary, Holler Back, Not Voting in an American Town, was featured in The Hollywood Reporter as part of a group of, quote, thoughtful and provocative films being made by women. It received a Best Documentary Award, was screened at colleges around the country, including at Harvard, and was aired on public television. Follow her on Twitter at Lulu Friesdat. That's IESDAT. And we've already got some good friends of ours like Roscoe Rossi joining us in the comments section. Greetings, Roscoe. I hope you're somewhere not too hot in this beautiful July day. So Lulu, let me, if I may, you gave me permission to call you Lulu last time, so I'm going to do it. You can call me
absolutely. I might as well just, we're getting to know each other, but my last name is Friesdat.
I'm so sorry. I've been mispronouncing.
It's like one of those things where you're getting to be friends with somebody, and then like if you wait too long, it's just like you can't correct them.
Even more awkward.
We've known each other 5 years, right? So it's Friesdat. Like I'll have some fries with that.
Oh, okay, awesome. Thank you for correcting me.
No problem.
I appreciate that. Well, Lulu. Ms. Friesdat, I wanted you back because just to refresh people's memories, or in case they didn't see the last episode, Ms. Friesdat appeared with us last week to update us about an event that I had attended the previous week, which was a court hearing in Brooklyn, convened or brought to my attention by our colleague, or my colleague, Jimmy Wagner. I'm sure he's your colleague too. I just don't want to put words in your mouth.
Attorney that we are working with, actually. We're working on an agreement. So I'll be a client in regard to this particular race. It's the 22nd state Senate Republican primary race, and it's very close. It's going to go to a hand recount tomorrow.
Right. If you don't mind, I'm just going to take a minute to kind of tell the story up till now, and then we'll just hand the mic to you. Okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
I promise.
No problem. I just want people to know kind of contextually where we're at. What are we talking about?
Thank you so much. So that was a shocker because the Board of Elections lawyer was trying to keep Ms. Friesdat as an observer as far away from overseeing the count of the New York City primary, which still isn't certified yet, you guys. Everyone's reported it as if it's done, but it's still being counted. And the judge, to his credit, said, no, she has to be 4 feet from the counting. And the counting takes place in a cage, like literally a cage in Brooklyn, overseen by the Board of Elections. So she had a court order. And since that happened, we interviewed her. The interview went up last Friday. I'm just going to tell you, at the same time, something dramatic happened to Ms. Friesdat last Friday that she'll tell you about at the cage. And also our site went down when we posted her interview, in which among the incredibly newsworthy things she was saying, and she has tremendous credibility, she's an expert witness in other trials. She has this extraordinarily distinguished career. She is not a conspiracy theorist. She's a respected reporter and now election integrity, nonpartisan activist. She to me, in a very newsworthy way, in our last interview, in court, right, attested to systematic ballot corruption in both the November election and this primary in New York City. So also on Friday, what happened to you, Ms. Freistat, at the Board of Elections count in Brooklyn?
So thank you so much, Naomi. We have been, as you said, systematically documenting violations at the Brooklyn Board of Elections really since 2021. I co-founded Smart Elections in 2019. And one of the things that we do is we do election observation and verification. And we've actually developed this program over the years. We've done multiple beta projects where we send trained observers out into the elections to collect data to try to assess how reliable the elections are. And as I said, we started in Brooklyn in 2021. Mm-hmm. And one of the things, so we watched the actual polling place, we collect data from the polling place. One of the things that we like to compare is whether or not the number of ballots matches the number of voters who sign in. You always want that to be even, right? Each voter
right.
ballot. And what we found immediately was that was not always the case. In fact, in one of the first beta pilot programs that we started, we found a polling location that in Brooklyn that had 698 more ballots than voters who had signed in. That was the race with Mayor Eric Adams. So we almost immediately started finding very suspect data. And then I also started going down and observing the audit. I believe as early as 2022, I was observing the audit in Brooklyn, which is called Kings County. That's the county designation. And from the beginning, they have been in violation with the law, which
who's they?
The Brooklyn Board of Elections.
Okay.
Yeah, right. The Brooklyn Board of Elections tries to keep observers as far away as possible. They really just make it impossible for anybody to really meaningfully observe what's happening. We're observers. We come down there and we jump through all the legal hoops that we're required to. And in New York, you have to get a certificate from either a candidate, a political party, or a PAC. And we bring those certificates and we come down at the times that are designated for the audit. And basically, they just keep us as far away from the actual auditing as they possibly can. So I think I started out about 17 feet away, and then the guard sits right next to me, usually to make sure that I don't move or go anywhere. And then there is this cage, as you said, and we have photos, so hopefully maybe people can see that at some point. But it's a huge, tall chain link fence. And then there's also a huge fan blowing, either air conditioner or fan. So right there. So I can't see what's happening. I can't hear what's happening. Here you can see this is like through the fence that they are actually handling ballots.
Hey everyone, it's Naomi Wolf with Daily Clout. You're not dealing with bad skin as an adult if you have acne. You're dealing with an untreated root cause. It starts small, little redness, a few bumps, then it expands. You may go through the cycle of doctor appointments and trying product after product with no real relief. You're not alone. 25% of adults struggle with acne, and more than 14 million Americans battle rosacea. 1 in 10 people suffers from chronic dermatitis or eczema. These are not just cosmetic issues. They itch, burn, and certainly crush confidence. Store-bought treatments only mask symptoms while ignoring bacteria, mites, and inflammation. And many of these have harsh chemicals that cause severe side effects. Clear Skin Ivermectin cream from the Wellness Company is different. This dermatologist-designed prescription formula targets the root cause safely and gently under the skin. Azelaic acid helps to clear clogged pores and brighten the skin. Ivermectin targets Demodex mites and reduces inflammation. Metronidazole helps control bacteria overgrowth and calms irritation. Stop guessing. Get Clear Skin Ivermectin cream and transform your skin back to normal. Go to Daily Clout Health and use code DailyClout to save $20 off, plus get free shipping.
Wow.
And so this has been going
can't
on.
See them.
I
mean, you can't see the ballots.
You look at those. Can you tell me the vote count? Who is the vote count for what candidate? Can you tell me the election?
Absolutely not. And the way, I mean, look at this. I don't know if you can see what my cursor is doing, but this person counting the ballot is holding the ballots. Oh, it's really obnoxious, like a 7-year-old holding the ballots away from you. So you cannot see what's on the page that person is looking at.
They do keep, I did notice that particular individual keeps the ballot envelopes face down, so that on the envelopes, they have big red numbers that have like the ED and the AD, but they keep them, he was keeping them face down, so I couldn't see. So this is the setup that has been going on for years. And the New York law is pretty specific. It doesn't say like a specific amount of a specific distance, but it does say that observers are supposed to be able to go down and observe. And so what happened was we haven't been able to observe. We haven't been able to see or hear what's happening. And so when we went into court the day that you were there, Naomi, with the attorney, Jimmy Wagner, that we're working with, he said to the judge, observers are not being able to meaningfully observe. And the judge was really very clear about that. And he said, that's not okay.
Right.
We're going to make sure that she can see what's going on. And they picked a specific distance. In this case, the judge said 4 feet. Observers have to be 4 feet from where the ballots are being counted. And he put that in writing. It's a judge's order in writing. And so then that was on a Wednesday. And so then Thursday, that was July 1st. So then Thursday, July 2nd, we went back down there with our court order, thinking that we would be able to watch, right? You get a court order, you're like, they're going to let you watch, but they didn't actually. So these pictures taken through the fence are still after we got the
court order. So can I just ask you to pause there so that so I can go through these pictures and people can really absorb the illegality of what you're showing us. And again, I want to credit you for taking these pictures, because initially the Board of Elections told you that it's illegal, or that, that it's against their rules for you to record in any way what they're doing. Is that not correct?
They do not want pictures to be taken. I mean, they have signs everywhere that there's no pictures, and they actually figured out that I was taking pictures. 2 of the election workers noticed that I was taking a picture, and they reported it. And then they got really upset with me. I thought that perhaps they were going to throw me out, but they did not. So I was able to get these pictures out, but they don't want pictures taken. One of the reasons, I think, is because the facility is really just falling apart. There's like plumbing in there that has like plastic cups holding it together, and you can see like the water going through the plastic cups into the pipes. I mean, if the place flooded, that's all of the ballots, and all of the election equipment down there. It's I think they don't want people taking pictures, partly because the facility is just really one huge code violation.
Well, I guess so. I mean, I'm thinking, other things more nefarious come to mind when you look at these pictures. For instance, I have never, ever, 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 ever seen votes counted in a cage, like a cage constructed around the vote counters. And the obvious thing, I mean, you're taking these pictures through a cage with a chain link barrier separating you from getting closer to these people who won't let you see what they're doing.
Well,
to me,
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Okay. No, I was just going to say, to me as a citizen, the cage clearly keeps observers from observing. But what would you say to that?
Observers are supposed to be inside the cage,
right?
To see what's going on. Right. The cage is supposedly to keep people out so that the ballots are safe. But in fact, the cage is often not locked. We've actually had insider information that they lost the keys to the cage on multiple occasions. The keys were missing. Nobody's paying attention if the keys to the cage are signed out. People are going into the location where the ballots are stored by themselves. There's just all kinds of things happening that are not supposed to be happening.
Right.
And that are specifically against the law. Like legally, they're supposed to have 2 people, a Democrat and a Republican, together anytime ballots are being handled. But what we have heard from insiders is that ballots are being handled on a regular basis by single unobserved individuals. Like by themselves. So this was basically, the judge said 4 feet that we're supposed to be able to observe.
Right.
We measured the edge of this table was from 4 feet, but then where they were going to count the ballots was actually more like 10 feet. So we said, no, that table's not okay. And then you can see there's another table. So then they made another adjustment, and they actually did set up a table right next to the fence. Not this picture. If you show another one, that, that we said, okay, so even if we're outside the fence, we could sit right next to the fence and we would be able to watch. But in fact, nothing happened at that table all day. They didn't count any ballots there. They continued to count ballots at the table where we couldn't see anything that was
okay. So now I'm just going to ask you to pause for a minute, and so people can really absorb this picture that you're describing. So here's the table that's right up against where the observers are sitting. You can see for yourself how, you know, I would say chaotic this setting is. I mean, when you're describing Ms. Freisdat or Lulu, the reports of people kind of going in and out of the cage, of people losing the keys to the cage, is any of that on the record? Do you have an affidavit for any of that? Can you get people to go on the record with that? I mean, that's very serious. Those are very serious allegations if they're correct. And it would be, you know, great to have some documentation of that. Is there any, or is this just off the record for now or on background?
We're working on getting documentation about all of these violations. Now, those people sitting there are not observers. Those are Board of Election employees that are inside the cage.
Right. And they're counting the ballots, right?
No, they're not doing anything. They're just probably sitting there on their phone. Honestly, that's one of the other things about the Board of Election employees. Most of the time, they're not actually really working. They're most of the time just like on their phone, because they're not hired for their competence. They're hired because they're connected to the Democrat or the Republican Party, and they're just sitting there.
Okay. I mean, that's bad, but also as a New York citizen, I'd want to know, who are they? What are they doing in there so close to where the ballots are being counted? And the security breach of people bringing their phones in is really significant. I mean, your vote is supposed to be secret in our system, but if people are walking around in there with their phones, they could photograph ballots and transmit them.
But the ballots are anonymous at this point. Your name isn't on your ballot. The New York law does prohibit voted ballots from being photographed, but no one, as far as I can tell, is actually photographing the ballots, and they're not actually counting the ballots at that table. They were supposed to, but they didn't. I think what we're just trying to communicate here is that the judge ordered a table to be set up 4 feet from where we could observe. And they did set up that table, but it wasn't,
didn't use it. Jerks.
And they continued to count ballots. Then
wait, can you just slow down and let me interrupt just a little bit, because there's a lot here. I hear you, and you're more tolerant than I am, but to me as a citizen, these random Board of Elections people who don't apparently have a role in counting the vote being right in the cage is a security breach to me. Like, who are they? What are they doing? What are they bringing in their clothes? You know, what are they like? I mean, call me a quote unquote conspiracy theorist. I'm 98% right in my record of raising issues. And to me, this is a real issue of random people who don't have a specific role in counting the vote are sitting around on their phones. I will just say that, you know, and especially if what you're saying can be confirmed, that the ingress and egress to the cage is not secure, and that there are issues with the keys or with things being open. The last time you were on the show, you talked about, and you showed us a picture, a giant vat of ballots sitting outside the cage in complete, you know, openness. Like, those are security breaches to me.
Yeah, the cage has two big openings on each side, a big opening kind of further way in the back, and a big opening on each side, in the back and in the front. And I guess at night they lock those up. But this particular, they make it look like this area where they're counting the ballots is especially secure. But in fact, that whole wall on the right side of the screen is really just rolling racks, and they move forward.
Oh my God, I noticed that. They're on wheels.
Yeah, so you could really just, that cage, it looks like it's like a secure facility. It's not really. It's a bunch of rolling racks that move around, and it's part of a much larger cage that has a lot of a kind of what I would call very porous situation with two big gates with people walking in and out who are, Board of Election employees. So hopefully they have, a code of ethics. But if you're trying to say that the ballots themselves are in a particularly secure location, from my observations, they're not. From my observations, as you said, they had a big rolling bin of a bag of ballots that was outside the cage overnight. They leave the boxes of ballots with the seals off when they're doing the count, like when they leave them for the night and they come back the next day. The boxes, they don't.
What? They leave them with the seals off when they're doing the count?
Yeah, when they're in the middle of the count, yeah, they'll be counting, and then when they're done with counting that batch, then at the end of a few days of that, then they'll seal them back up. But they're just, it's not for what, if you really know about security, what's happening here is what we call performative. That means that it's mostly kind of a show. And if you actually get into the details of it, for example, the seals are really important. There should always be seals on the ballots at all times. And there should be a seal log that tells you the number of the seal, and it should get checked. And every time if that box of ballots is going to get opened, the seal gets cut. Somebody initials it, that they checked that the seal log number matched the seal. And then when they're done counting those ballots, they put the ballots back and put a new seal on, and they check that number and write that number in the log and initial it. But that sort of care is not being taken. And in fact, many times the ballots come in and the seals are broken. Wow. And they'll say that it's because the seals are like breaking in the police van. But you just don't know why the seal was broken, and it's not taken seriously. A seal being broken on ballots should be taken very seriously.
Well, and it's not. Can't a ballot be replaced with another ballot if the seal is open or broken?
Yeah, there are big boxes of printed ballots all over the first floor, even at the same time that the ballots are being audited on the second floor. So it's not, in my opinion, as somebody who's observed elections and observed audits for years, I don't believe that they have a secure setup here. But the specific violation that we were talking to the judge about is just that we can't view the ballots, and we're the observers.
So I want to ask you to pause just a minute. I'm sorry to keep doing this. There's just so much that's, sort of bigger than the scope of your very important focus, right, on the court order. And we'll get to that, I promise. But look at this. I mean, there's so much that's wrong here. And I'm immersed in security issues. My husband is in the security field. And I can just imagine what he and his colleagues would say if they came in to do a security audit for this situation. I mean, two things. Isn't that an open kind of ingress, egress, like one of those partitions on wheels is open right there to another space? Isn't that correct?
Yes, this is what I'm saying. The cage is not really a cage. It has walls, but the walls are rolling racks that move around, and there is obviously, an entrance to it that isn't even, it's not a gate or it's not locked or anything. It's just kind of an opening.
It's wide open. Anyone can walk in there.
Yeah.
There's no scanning. There's no code to enter. Literally anyone can walk in and out and do anything in that open space. This isn't just performative. This is a Potemkin village. This is totally fake.
Well, that's what I said we have actually watched them do fake audits there. We have watched them, pretend to count the ballots by hand when in fact they were just copying the numbers from the voting machine results. So
that's very important. And I suspect that your having said that in our last interview led to you being what happened to you last Friday, and also to our site going down. It certainly created a ripple of shock in the courtroom when you said it in the courtroom. And we'll get to that in just a minute. I don't mean to slow you down. I'm just looking at this dumbfounded. Who has access to the space beyond the cage there?
I mean, I think that's very hard for us to know because we're not there after hours. So we don't really know what the conditions are like when they leave, who comes back. What I don't think it's really possible for us to know what the overnight access is. I have been told from insiders that the cages are not, they're not being protected securely, and that the keys to the cages, at least the keys to one of the cages, was lost on a regular basis, and that there really was no security.
I mean, where does that space, that open space beyond the cage where anyone can walk in and out, is there another exterior door beyond that?
Yeah, there's a huge outer cage where, like you saw, where all the Board of Election employees were sitting, and where the chief usually sits. His desk is there, and he sits kind of in the middle of that cage. And then there's a whole nother kind of counting space behind this space where lots of Board of Elections employees come and do various tasks. I'm not really allowed to watch what happens over there very much. They keep me in like one location.
Right.
I walk around, they yell at me. So it's hard. I don't know too much about that other space. Right. There's a second cage on the other side of the floor where they have the high-speed scanners, and I have seen that cage as well. And then the two cages have like these big sort of swing gates that do lock.
Right.
But as I said, we've heard that the keys to the cages were lost and that there's not much security around.
Unbelievable. I mean, it certainly is going to warrant us looking at the plot or plan of that building to see if there's an exterior door, which there would have to be, right, for fire purposes, outside these cages that...
Well, this is where they count. This isn't where they store the ballots. So the ballots are stored in another room, but we have been told that that room also has people accessing it unsupervised on their own. So individuals will go in and out of the room where the ballots are kept, and that is specifically against New York law. New York law says that anytime you're handling ballots, there has to be a Democrat and a Republican present. You're never supposed to be handling ballots just with one person.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, may I also note that it's incredibly chaotic looking, like tons of paper that could go in and out, tons of cartons full of paper that could be brought in, brought out. There's no cleanliness, like there's no, it's not sanitized, as security people would say, in any way. It would be very, very easy to, reach up. Look at that. There's giant piles of cartons stacked up on top, right on top of the cage wall. They could be holding anything. You could reach up and take down, if there's a carton full of replacement ballots, you could reach down and take down a carton of replacement ballots. There's no reason for giant cardboard cartons full of God knows what to be within reaching distance of everyone inside the cage. And the last thing I'm going to say is, and this is really just from a security perspective, that it's not secure all the way up to the ceiling. People could, I don't know if there are security cameras, but people could, climb right over with a ladder, right? They
don't have to because it's open.
Right, you don't have to because it's open. Exactly. This is the least secure thing I've ever seen. This is absolute performative nonsense. All right, let's like, when I was a child, I had a pet rat, and his cage was more secure than this.
They do have security cameras. So there are security cameras there. I'm not exactly sure what areas are covered by the security cameras. I'm not sure. So I don't want to say. I'm not sure what areas are covered by the security cameras. Right. We also have footage, for example, of like the Maricopa County, Arizona facility where they store the voting machines and where they do the testing. And I will say that it's a much cleaner, more spare environment. As you're saying, it's an environment that clearly has been meticulously scrubbed, and you can really see every single object in that environment. So certainly in the comparison of spaces that I've seen to take care of ballots and equipment, this is really on the worst side of the spectrum.
It's absolutely chaotic. And may I also note, it seems like they've got a printer in there. And one thing
there's multiple printers because
Oh.
they're scanners and printers. That's what that room does. They take the ballots, they scan them through a second scanner and print out the results, and then they compare them to the original election results. So they have, yes, multiple printers in that room.
Oh, well, I just want to note one thing. You know, my husband was given, as I shared with you last time, when he gave a fake name and fake address, he was given a form to go vote one precinct over. And the back of it was a blank form that could be filled out any way you wanted and Xeroxed and filled out absolutely any way. And how do we know they're not printing out additional ballots on those printers and filling them out? Like, we don't know what those printers are doing. We have to subpoena the record inside of those printers. I mean, anything could be, this is a situation in which literally anything could be happening with those ballots. And now you're supposed to, let's go back to the issue of what you can see and not see, and then let's go back to your court order, okay?
And
you can't see anything.
I think we want to also just get to what happened on Friday when I went back.
Yes, we do.
I wanted to observe, they're starting a hand count of, I believe 3 races in Brooklyn are close enough that they have to have a hand count. I know there's at least 2. And one is the state Senate district that we're looking at, and the other was District 58.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted we had a whole series of kind of emails that went back and forth between the Board of Elections and our attorney. And they initially scheduled the hand count for the state Senate 22nd district, which is the race that we're looking at. They scheduled it for Friday. Now, both candidates in that are Orthodox Jews, or I know at least one of them, Bernard, is.
Oh my gosh.
And I think that Collar is also Orthodox. And so that was very disrespectful to them. And so Bernard wrote a letter to the Board of Elections and said, I'm an observant Jew, and Friday is the Sabbath, and Saturday is also the Sabbath. And because they said they were going to start counting on Friday and work through the weekend.
Wow.
Bernard said, I would really like it to be scheduled on Monday. And our attorney also asked for that. So then the counsel from the Board of Elections, the attorney, sent an email that was very, kind of like open-ended, basically. So she said, we can accommodate you, and we will start the hand count on Monday. But she said, in the same email, there's no guarantee that we'll start the hand count on Monday. She said they're going to work through the weekend on this other race, and whenever they finish, they're just going to start on your race. And so and she said that specifically, no guarantee about when the 22nd district race would begin. And so I was worried about that. And we also asked them not to prep for the hand count because we want to see them open the ballot boxes. We want to see seals on the ballot boxes. Right. And so I went down on Friday so that I could observe that. What were they prepping? What were they doing? And also because they said there was no guarantee that they weren't going to start on our race. But then the chief clerk, Sal, told me that I did not have a certificate.
Now, when you say chief clerk, it's the chief clerk of the Board of Elections of Brooklyn.
That is the name of the title. He is the Brooklyn Board of Elections chief clerk. He goes by Sal. His full name is Salvatore.
Okay.
Barrera.
Carrera?
Barrera. Barrera. Barrera.
Thank you. Go ahead.
They call him Sal. So Sal came up personally. I gave my certificate to the guard and they let me up. And then Sal came up to where the count was personally and said, no, you can't observe today. And I said, why not? And he said, well, you don't have a certificate for this race. So we're not going to let you observe unless you have a certificate for this race, which was like District 58. So I do have a certificate from a state comptroller candidate, which should allow me to observe any count in the state because the comptroller is on every single ballot in the state. So I gave them the state comptroller certificate and he said, no, this isn't any good. We're only looking at the District 58 race. And so you can't observe today. And I said, okay, can I record you saying that? And he said, no, security, show her out, please. And so he had the guards show me out. So they're hostile, they're obstructionist, I think for me, it's like, what are you hiding? The more that they behave that way, the more that they take a legitimate observer and refuse to let them observe, the more suspicious people become.
Right.
What are they hiding? What are they doing? You know what I'm saying?
Well, some of what they're hiding may be in plain sight. I'm so sorry that happened to you. That's shocking. It also sounds illegal. Isn't it, as you noted last time, a felony to disregard a court order?
So there definitely is a section of the New York law which says that anybody who prevents a poll watcher, which is what I am, from doing their legally entitled jobs is committing a felony. Right. So it is possible that you could, prosecute criminally on the basis of some of these actions. So I think we're going back into court on the 16th. Okay. They're going to start the hand count tomorrow. We're going to go down and hopefully we're going to be able to have meaningful observation on starting tomorrow. Right. We expect to be at the table. In other boroughs, we have somebody coming down who's attended and worked the hand counts in other boroughs so that we can try to give a baseline for what's normal. And what we've been told is that in other counties, you have the Board of Election officials on one side of the table and you have the candidates opposite them at the table. And then the Board of Election officials hold up each ballot and call out the numbers on the ballot. And then the candidates can keep score themselves.
Right. That's as it should be.
We'll see if they actually do that.
Right. I just want to say for the record, I've zeroed in now on this complete scene, and it is literally impossible to see a single thing on any ballot.
Right.
Absolutely nothing. In fact, it looks like all the ballots are face down, except the ones that people are holding up against their chests. There's something else I want to call your attention to, Lulu and audience. There's tons of cartons labeled WB Mason right under the table, and there's another carton here right next to the printer. So of course, just a minute ago, I asked Google, does WB Mason manufacture paper? And the answer is WB Mason does not manufacture paper themselves. Rather, they are a massive distributor that sources, brands, and sells paper. They offer a wide variety of office paper, including their own house brand Flagship, colored paper and cardstock, which you can purchase directly. They stock a massive inventory from major manufacturers like Hammermill, Boise, HP, and Finch. And if you're looking to buy paper in bulk, you can do it at WB Mason. So this goes to my question. I mean, again, I think we're seeing a crime scene. I don't mean to get ahead of myself, but I think we're seeing a possible crime scene in plain view here, because right under the feet of the Board of Elections, right, like literally 2 inches from this guy's knees, right, within reaching distance for everyone, is piles, cartons and cartons and cartons of what could be paper. And right next to this printer is a carton of paper. And you can make more ballots, is the point. You've attested that there were piles of blank ballots sitting right outside this area. We've seen the picture
on the first floor. This is on the second floor. Yes, there are lots of.
But why? If everything is kosher, why do people counting the ballots need right under? This is why they don't want you to get closer. They can reach down. Why do they need like reams of paper right underneath the table unless they're making more ballots? Are the ballots paper sized? Are they 8.5 by 11?
I think it depends on the election. I think the ballots are longer than that. Actually, they're kind of like a legal size. See, the whole setup of that room is in order to print out the documents that they are comparing to the ballots. So they are printing all day, basically. They basically what they're doing is in this room, they're taking the ballots, they are running them through another set of scanners, which is a different brand than the scanners that are in our election, like in our polling places. The polling places have a brand of scanner called ES&S. That's Election Systems and Software.
Right.
ES&S is the New York State. Well, they're the New York City vendor, and they are in a few other counties. And then the audit vendor is called Clear Ballot.
Mm-hmm.
And so they have about 4 Clear Ballot scanners there.
Mm-hmm.
They run the ballots through the Clear Ballot scanners.
Mm-hmm.
Clear Ballot scanner, it counts them and
Mm-hmm.
it puts out a report. And the report
Right.
has all of the candidates and how many votes that the scanner has tabulated for each
Mm-hmm.
candidate. And then they take that report and they're supposed to compare it to the ES&S results. And they're supposed to make like a check mark showing that they did the comparison. But remember, we showed you in court that many times that those documents that are supposed to have a check mark next to them showing that they were checked have been blank, pages and pages and pages of blank paper. But they are, that is why they are printing, because they're running the ballots through the scanner and they're printing the results from that scanner.
Okay, fair enough. And I see some more reams of paper right here behind this woman in the green t-shirt. I guess what I just want to rule out is I also see that the ballots or the documents that they're looking at seem to be 8.5 by 11. So I just want to make sure that there's no crossover that's possible there. And I want to know what's in these boxes that can just be reached up and utilized. Like, why are there boxes within the cage? You know what, like, this is the least sanitary system I've ever seen. Okay, so you were...
That's a fair point, what you're saying, Naomi, which is just that the setup is very sloppy. It's really, it has not been sanitized, as you say, in order to really protect every aspect of the count. So if you really wanted to do this carefully, you would have basically a bare room with a table and chairs that was open to the public to watch, where the counters would do their counting. And then you would have a separate room where you have the paper and the scanners, and that's printed out. And then you would bring into the sanitized room the results that could then be compared to the ballots. And you would have all of this clutter and stuff, you know, in maybe another room. So yeah, it is very sloppy. It is not secure, and it is not set up in a way that would inspire confidence. That is absolutely correct.
I just want to thank you for confirming my disorienting sense of this being wholly wrong. Look at how many giant boxes are within reach. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, within reach of anyone inside that room. For what reason, it's unclear, but anything could be in those boxes. And now I want to call everyone's attention to this. This is the fake table that was set up in response to the court order.
So
they measured it.
That's actually the one that's still too far away. That's not, that one is still 10 feet away from where we would be. There was, but they were kind of pretending, oh, well, we'll do it. We'll set up this table and you'll be 4 feet from one edge.
Oh God. But in fact, they didn't use that table to count. Is that not correct?
They didn't use that one to count. They set up, so that's one. Then here, we said no to that setup. We said, no, that's not what the judge ordered. And so then they said, okay, we'll set up this table right next to the fence. And believe me, it wasn't easy to get them to do that. There was a lot of just back and forth and back and forth. The first thing they said was, well, that court order is not for all the ballots. It's only for the ballots in the 22nd state Senate district. So we don't actually have to follow that for any other count, which is ridiculous. The judge is saying they're supposed to be able to meaningfully observe in any, in any situation. But anyway, we're just like back and forth. They're so like obstructionist and hostile. And eventually we got them to set up that table where we would be able to see. And then they didn't use it.
And now are you saying that they went ahead and counted after the court order this far away from where you're sitting?
They set up that other table and then they just continued to count over here where they always count. And then
where literally you can't see anything. There is no way meaningfully to observe anything here.
No, and then the things that they're saying are just ridiculous. So then I think one of the staff said, well, we're not counting, the machine is counting.
Oh, for God's sake.
And so we're not actually counting ballots, but they're comparing. That's what the audit is about. And then they said, well, you can see. And we said, no, we can't see. And then they said, well, why do you want to see?
No.
Yes,
Who said that to you?
One of the the staffers that was, I don't want to get into people's names. I don't want people to feel, that their privacy is invaded. But one of the main technical staff people, just said a lot of things that really made no sense. Like, well, why do you need to see? But we're observers. That's what we're there to do. That is our job, is to watch the election audit. So that's why we need to see.
Wow. I mean, again, you're nicer than I am. This is a public event paid for with public money, overseen by public employees, and the ballots belong to the public. So they have no expectation of privacy. Everything they're doing should be on the record. I know it's awkward to go in day after day and be escorted out, if you reveal someone's name or, make people mad, but I'm willing to make people mad. If I have their names, I will happily leak them or publish them, because these are public servants doing a very important thing, which, last November, when they did it with flaws that you've been an eyewitness to, according to you, it resulted in people taking office who might not have won their elections. And the same thing is about to happen now. I just can't help looking. It's like picking at a scab. I can't help looking at this gigantic, 6-foot opening in the cage where who knows who can walk in and out, and these gigantic unsecured cartons of paper with God knows what is in them. I just can't get over that. Like, what is up with that? Why are there cartons that you can reach up and utilize unless something is wrong? And again, and I'm just kind of repeating what you're saying because I'm so overwhelmed. Jimmy's calling. Let me see if there's something he wants to say. Hey, Jimmy, I'm actually live with Lulu. Is there something you want to say, or can I call you back? All right. Okay. So I'm going to call Jimmy back, but
okay. So I think I think that it's really great that you're pointing all of these things out, Naomi. You have a good eye, and you're really clearly looking at these photos and saying, this is a problem, and this is a problem, and this is a problem. So I think it's really helpful that you're really looking at these and saying there are numerous security issues here. And then I think it's good for us to look forward and kind of talk about what's going to happen next week.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I was getting carried away. And Autumn Smith, a very good citizen journalist in Michigan who has exposed a ton of local corruption, says, Naomi, you're right. Yep. No expectation of privacy. Yes, they took an oath of office. And she adds, name their names. They took an oath of office to do that election job, which is true. Sorry, go ahead. Let's look forward. Lulu,
right.
What's going on next?
Tomorrow, we're going to go down and do the hand count. And I believe that there are a number of issues. One of the main ones is just that we don't have confidence really in any step of the process. And so even though they're going to count the ballots by hand, and I honestly have every expectation that they're going to confirm that the candidate that we're not working with, Carl Collar, is ahead by, at this point, they're going to say he's ahead by, I think, probably 16 votes. Although this is another thing that's weird, even though they've been adding to the total, like by counting the absentee ballots and the affidavit ballots, they haven't been updating the total online. So all of this is kind of going on behind the scenes. They're, adjusting the totals, but it hasn't been public, which is really problematic. They should be committing every step. They should count the absentee ballots, and then they should post that publicly. They should count the affidavit ballots and post that publicly, but they're not doing that. So right now, officially, I believe that Carl Collar is 7 votes ahead. We're going to go into the hand count. We're going to go through and we're going to count all those ballots. But it's really, and then we're going to have a new total that's going to say at the end of that hand count which candidate has technically won the race. Mm-hmm. But our concern is that we have really at this point very little confidence that those ballots necessarily reflect the accurate ballots that voters actually cast. Because as you pointed out, there really has been very little chain of custody. We know that people are going in and out of the ballot room unsupervised. We know that seals are being broken. Maybe they're being broken in the police van just from the ballots being knocked, the boxes being jostled around, or maybe they're being cut. We have not been presented with any seals or seal logs. We weren't able to meaningfully.
Any seals or seal logs? No seals or seal logs you've been presented with?
I haven't seen them. I mean, they're not, no, they have not given us any seal logs. No. So these are the types of documents that would give us some confidence that the ballots are, that the ballots are authentic, that the count is correct. But I think since we don't have any of that, no matter what happens at the hand count, we will continue to have concerns about whether or not this race is a valid representation of what the voters want. As I said, we have a court date on Thursday, and depending on what happens in the hand count, we'll be, reviewing that information with the judge.
Mm-hmm. Will you have the right, or you and your attorney, Jimmy Wagner, and the candidate's attorney, Jimmy Wagner, will you have the opportunity to look at the ballots that the Board of Elections claims are the ones that are tipping the victory to the opposition of your candidate? Or, I'm sorry, Jimmy's candidate?
Yeah, I think that remains to be seen. We're going to go in there on Monday, and I described to you what the count is like in other counties. The candidates and their team sit at the table across from the Board of Election employees. The Board of Election employees hold up each ballot, call it out verbally. Everyone can keep score. If that's the case, we'll at least be able to have a good sense of what do those ballots say. Those ballots that they claim are the authentic ballots, what do they say? Right. And then once we find that out, we'll have to make a decision about whether or not we need to pursue any further legal action based on all of the other circumstances that indicate that there have been major problems with the election.
Wow. And on Thursday, are you going before the same judge that issued the court order saying that you need to have meaningful oversight 4 feet away?
Yes. Well, as far as I know, we'll be back with Judge Sweeney. And then keeping in mind that the original kind of inciting incident of this entire race was that Bernard Vazelberg, who's the candidate that we've been working with, was actually ahead by a lot. He was up by about 75 votes around, I think when I'm going from memory, but I think when 65% of the votes had been counted. And this is a small election. So there's approximately 500 ballots for each candidate. So you're talking about, maybe 15% of the race, a margin of victory of about 15% of the of his votes. He was up, and then somehow in just those last ballots that came in, all of a sudden he was down. And then for some reason, every batch that they count since then, Caller keeps getting more ballots, which also seems unusual. Like, why did Caller get more votes in the absentee ballots, and then Caller supposedly got more votes with the provisional ballots? It seems it's something that does definitely impact my ability to have confidence in the election. Every stage of it, the way the votes came in, the way the ballots are being counted, the board's own behavior, which just makes you more suspicious because they won't let people watch what's going on. The fact that we can see all of the poor security surrounding the ballots, the fact that they're violating the judge's order, like all of it together just makes you question the election.
Absolutely. To say the least. Well, how do you think Judge Sweeney will react when he sees, which I hope he will, these photographs showing that his court order was completely treated like it was toilet paper?
I don't know. I know that Jimmy sent him the photographs, but the photos that I saw, they were black and white copies. You couldn't tell anything from those. I think that the judge needs to be presented with color, clear photos like these ones that you've seen, where he could see clearly, here's the table they set up. That met your court order. They did not use that table. Here's the table that they counted. The next time we came back to observe, we were not allowed to observe, and we actually were removed from the audit, like from that hand count. Like they're not being transparent, and I don't believe that they are following the judge's order. And we'll see what he says. If he holds them in contempt of court, I don't know what his response will be. That would be, I think maybe ultimately we believe that they need some sort of court-appointed monitor at the Brooklyn Board of Elections, and they need that type of supervision.
I mean, again, to say the least, I think this is a flawed election. It needs to be thrown out and
it's
from the beginning.
Maybe just give the voters a new chance and actually try to handle the ballots correctly. We believe the Brooklyn Board of Elections needs something like a special master appointed.
Right, but that's very vulnerable. Like one person, that's one point of failure.
If it's overseen by the court and the court is checking in and saying, checking in on a regular basis with observers or with members of the community, these are the guidelines that are being set down. Really, at this point, there are reasonably good laws on the books in New York. At this point, we're just asking them to follow the law that exists.
Right. And Autumn Smith says Judge Sweeney needs to start holding people in contempt, and these damn sheriffs need to start arresting people. And she says a writ of mandamus needs to be issued, forcing them to do their job lawfully and legally and to follow the judge's order. And she says, and I think she's right, you need to write a signed sworn affidavit about what you witnessed, get it notarized, and serve the city clerk, election clerks, county clerk, attorney general, county sheriff, and local police chief. She did that. So that's your homework, Lulu.
I think that Jimmy is working on an affidavit with us.
Okay, I'm glad to hear that. I mean, you guys are real fighters, and I'm beyond shocked about what you've shown us today. One last question for you, and then we can talk about how people can support you, which is so important. But were your rights violated when you were ushered out so you couldn't do your job?
I think let's see what the judge says about that. They're going to say technically that I didn't have a certificate for that race, that they were hand counting. But I think the fact that the attorney for the Board of Elections had said that there was no guarantee that they weren't going to start counting our race means that I should have been allowed to stay and observe just as a protective measure so I could see, are they counting our race or not? That's what I wanted to see. I wanted to see, are they prepping the ballots for our race? What are they doing? I believe that the certificate that I brought there was adequate and should have been respected. And so I do believe that my rights were violated. Yes, but we'll see what the judge says.
We will, but I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but I'm thinking of a whole separate cause of action, because your job is to shine a light on election issues. And if you were prevented from doing your job, that's, an issue for you and in terms of violating your rights, I would say.
I think I'll concentrate on, this particular case and see what we're hoping is that if we do get into court on this case, that we'll be able to really bring to the front numerous other violations that we've seen in the Brooklyn Board of Elections and the Manhattan Board of Elections. These are, and even in the Bronx, we had an observer in the Bronx who had just ridiculous response when he went up there with a certificate, and they literally said, define an audit.
Oh my God.
He's there as an observer, like, you're the Brooklyn, that was in the Bronx Board of Elections defined an audit. Like, do you not know what the audit is? Like, so
I need to interview that person, get that person.
But I just do want to take a minute, if you don't mind. I want to show people our website. It is smartelections.us. We would really, really be grateful for any donation that you would be able to make to support our work. We are actually trying to raise $500,000 right now, because the work that we're doing here in New York, we are also doing across the entire country. We have a program, it's called Count the Vote, and we are training observers to do this very type of work. And we now have observers in 47 states, and we have, I believe, over 900 volunteers. And we are going to be, especially in those competitive races in the midterms, but we need resources. We need to have people who can really read through the reports, make sure that we can get it to people like Naomi, who can take action on it and get the public better informed. And if we need to go into court, we of course need legal fees. So we've raised over $90,000 at this point. And we welcome any financial support that you're able to give us. If you go to smartelections.us and click on donate, it is tax deductible, and we are tremendously, tremendously grateful for any support. Thank you.
I'm going to second what Ms. Freisdat just said. You guys, just like I'm always saying, you get the journalism that you pay for, you get the democracy that you support as well. There are not that many people who are out on the front lines like Ms. Freisdat and her colleagues and her 900 volunteers. There are not that many people who are willing to go through the painful, depressing, laborious, nerdy work of trying to watch the vote, acquainting themselves with the law locally, as well as, locally across the country, as well as here in Brooklyn. And you're not doing it, but she's doing it for you. So literally $5, $10, $5,000, whatever you can afford, it's now or never, you guys. And the 10 million inhabitants of New York, your future is getting hijacked. You saw it. She showed you the receipts. She took those pictures at some risk to herself. She was hustled out. Today it was her being escorted out. Tomorrow, God knows. She's really putting herself on the line. And you have to support her. I'm just going to say it right now. You've got to help her reach that $500,000 mark, or whatever you can help her do, because I can tell you from experience, lawyers are expensive. Fighting this kind of fight is expensive. And she needs other people who recognize how valuable this work is to support her. I couldn't interview her right now if other people hadn't supported her to this point, so that she can do this work day by day. So you guys, it's on you. Go to smartelections.us, dig as deep as you can to support Lulu Freisdat and her colleagues. Anything else you want to say before I will say goodbye to you and thank our sponsors?
Just thank you so much. Really appreciate all of the hard work that you're doing. It's really inspiring. We appreciate it. I do want people to know that we're nonpartisan. We're really getting in there and trying to represent the election, not a particular candidate or a particular side. We work with people across the political spectrum, and we really try to be fair. We're interested in fair, accurate, accessible elections. And thank you so much. I know that that's what you want too, Naomi.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank heavens for people like you. Real patriot. Thank you so much, Lulu Freisdat of smartelections.us. I'm going to say goodbye now and thank our sponsors. Bye-bye. Oh my gosh, you guys, very interesting, very low audience count right now compared to our usual viewership. So I don't know if it's shadow banning. I don't know if no one's interested in the hijacking of America's Greatest Cities primary, but it's up to you to share this incredibly important video. Share it, especially in New York. Share it with your elected officials, especially in New York. Well, your elected officials aren't going to be much help in New York. So share it with your senators, share it with your members of Congress, share it on alternative media, share it on social media. I just really need your help, you guys. And also, we want to thank our sponsors who make reporting like this possible. Something I think about as I have these conversations is that we all know that our institutions are corrupt and our economy is corrupt. But I think about what people can actually do to help themselves, given that awareness. I hear from a lot of people who can see the corruption and understand the risks, the instability, the loss of trust in our economic system. But when it comes to their own savings, their own retirement, they're still tied to those same systems. It's not usually due to a lack of understanding on their part. It's more because of hesitation. It's that space between knowing that you should take a step and deciding to act on it. Sometimes people look back on not acting with regret. What I'm noticing is that people are starting to shift their thinking away from trying to predict every investment outcome and more toward asking, how exposed am I? And for many people, that leads them to explore ways of putting a portion of their savings outside the traditional financial system, including in assets such as physical gold. I've been speaking with Augusta Precious Metals about this, and I appreciate that they approach this from an educational perspective. They take the time to walk people through how investing in gold works, what to consider, and whether it even makes sense for your situation, and without adding any pressure. If you want to look into this issue more carefully, you can go to dailycloutgold.com or text clout to 35052 and ask for Augusta's free information kit. It's a way to understand your options more clearly so that when you do make a decision, it's from a place of awareness rather than hesitation. Also, independent journalists are reporting on energy lockdowns starting to take place in the EU and Australia. The official narrative is that this is due to the Iran war and reduced oil supplies. Also, the FBI is investigating potential sleeper cells in the US, even alleged plots targeting major cities and public events. Americans are raising real concerns. Could this situation escalate and disrupt everyday life, even access to basic medications? We've already seen how fragile supply chains can be during COVID, and oil is the backbone of everything we use and consume every day. When conflict hits, 80% of the medications America sources from overseas can become scarce very quickly. And that's why being prepared with a medical emergency kit really matters. The wellness company offers a doctor-prescribed kit with 8 core medications that every American should have on hand, including antibiotics, ivermectin, and more, delivered directly to your door. It's designed to help treat common conditions such as UTIs, pneumonia, strep throat, and 25 other conditions. If you're concerned about expiration dates, Google this military study, and you'll learn something new about the scam of some expiration dates. PMC 7040264. You can't buy this kit at a pharmacy. You purchase your kit fully digitally. Just fill out a medical questionnaire, a licensed doctor reviews it, and fills the prescriptions. While headlines can be confusing during times of international conflict, you will get incredible reassurance having this kit in your home. Brian and I are so relieved that we've invested in our TWC medical kit. And even when times are not stressful, the most likely emergencies are often the everyday situations that now Americans can take for granted because they are prepared. So head over to dailycloudhealth.com and use code DAILYCLOUT to save up to $30 off and get free shipping. Kits are available to U.S. residents only. Again, that's dailyclouthealth.com and use code DAILYCLOUT. You'll get $30 off and free shipping. And I can't stress enough how much money we've saved from not having to go to doctors and pay for a doctor's visit every time there's a UTI, an infected cut, minor thing that we want to treat at home. We've saved hundreds and hundreds of dollars. Thank you guys. I love you. And remember, just as with smartelections.us, if these conversations are important to you, useful to you, I need your donations. My team needs your donations. So go to Substack and subscribe to Outspoken. It's $70 a month. It makes all the difference in keeping our doors open. And you can go over to Daily Cloud and subscribe there. It's, I think, $6 or $7 a month. And you can also make a one-time donation. Again, you get the journalism you support, and we really need your support over at Daily Cloud. We've broken story after story with a tiny team of very talented people. But there are, costs involved: hosting, editing, publishing, social media management, and we can't operate without you. So thank you for helping us break this incredibly huge story. But please do subscribe and donate to Daily Cloud and to Outspoken on Substack. I love you guys to bits. I'll see you next time.